deep learning based models, large language models, are extremely data hungry.
It's either people, it's either the product or the process, or all three.
The idea is an idea, right? It can come from anyone.
They have to get into an implementation mode rather than sort of focusing on research.
Speed and accuracy is of utmost importance.
You are able to create a niche for your product.
Stay ahead in technology and AI.
But it's more of the configuration customization rather than the model customization that's required.
Focus on the long-term value creation.
How much of additional effort you need to do on top of these models.
Maybe go towards a different route, like build, buy, or rent.
So these two, I think, are right now two good models.
Specific models for specific use cases and niche. AI is able to understand that and be able to deliver that.
I believe OpenAI has taken the lead.
They do a pretty good job.
Tired and frustrated of corporate artificial and plastic talks? Are you frustrated with unskilled YouTube gurus telling you what to upskill, how to cross skill when they themselves don't have any tech background? So here at Titan Stock, we call industry stalwarts from across multiple industries and have them share their views on what they look for in lateral candidates and in freshers. So these are people who've been there, done that, and who are continuing to do. So these folks are going to give you their raw, unfiltered opinion on what they want and what they look for in a candidate and how you can prepare. We will talk about how should a lateral approach every industry and how they should get in, and how a fresher should kind of prepare themselves so that they become industry ready and more employable compared to just another college graduate. Welcome to Titan Stock. Here we are with another episode, again breaking the shackles of corporate world and talking to you straight from the heart.
Hey all, Gautam here again from Titan Stock. So today we have a panel of 3 guests from different technology verticals, and we are going to have a talk around challenges and opportunities in AI adoption. So I'll just give a brief introduction, and I would like each of you to give a 2-minute introduction about yourself, and then we go from there. So we have Ashish Kulkarni, who is the Director of Applied AM from Krutim, and then we have Ravi from KaptureCX, who is the Vice President there, and Sandesh, who is SVP Strategy from Perfios. So we'll go with you, Ashish, first.
Hello, hi. Thank you, Gautam, for having me here. It's a pleasure. So yeah, I mean, I like to think of my career journey as as 2 parts. I spent first 8 to 10 years of my career working in software development, product development. I was with IBM for most of that period. Early 2011 is when I sort of shifted into the AI space. Enrolled into a full-time PhD program at IIT Bombay. Did that, and then post that I've last so many years I've been on this AI side of things. Was with Amazon, the Flipkart group of companies, and then Rakuten for a few years, and now here I am at Krutim, building full stack AI out of India.
Awesome, great. And point to mention also, Ashish, is that you're an alumni of Vishwakarma, our sponsors.
Yes.
So, we've had different technology folks from Vishwakarma at different leadership levels in different companies. So, we're doing this as a larger initiative across industry leaders and alumni from Vishwakarma. So, that's something that I wanted to call out as well.
Yes, no, absolutely. 2003 batch, PIT, Pune. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. So, over to you. So wanted to understand, Sandesh, from you, your background and a brief introduction about you as well.
Sure, Gautam. First of all, thanks a lot for having me here. So I've been in the financial technology kind of a domain for the last 20 years. Started off with ANZ Bank, spent about 13 years primarily in the technology side. Started off as a developer, then moved into architecture, solution architecture, enterprise architecture, etc. Then the shift happened when I got a call from a consultant saying, "Are you looking for a change?" When I said no, he's like, "What if I make you an offer which you can't resist?" So it was like Godfather calling, and that was for Microsoft. It was for McKinsey and Company. So it was a role for digital consultant in one of the largest digital transformation program in a largest financial institution. So that was a great shift in kind of my career from technology to consulting. I did that for about 3.5-4 years, and then travel took a toll, and then I thought I'll settle down, and that's when I found Perfios. So Perfios was in the cutting edge of technology, creating uh, a really true real-time analytics platform for banks, financial institutions, lenders, and insurance companies. And here I take care of strategy. So I used to handle business units as well, and now purely looking at corp dev and partnership and building new solutions for the institution. So Perfios, like I said, builds analytical solutions for banks. We are a B2B SaaS company. Yeah, that's a quick introduction.
Thanks, Sandesh. And Ravi, over to you at Capture
Sure.
CX.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks again, Gautam, for having me here. And after listening to you guys, definitely feels like I am the least qualified on the AI aspect or the technology aspect. I call myself, or I kind of, my career has been mostly around like, analytics, analytics-driven decision making. I would say that. Uh, Over the last 6 and 7 years, I was with Google. Prior to Google, I was with a couple of consulting firms and a VC firm as well. But across all these ventures, my role has been mostly around carving out insights from data, and that's when kind of I had some bit of experience around the ML. Over the last few years, some insights into what AI is and what AI can do. And most recently, I'm trying to kind of implement AI on the business side in my current role as a revenue strategy person, trying to understand what AI can do in product innovations, and help company shape itself, especially a small size startup shape itself in the next 4 to 5 years. So that's my background, and that's my role right now. Looking forward to our discussion.
So I kind of wanted to, talk about the current trends in AI adoption. So I wanted to understand the impact of LLMs on the Indian financial services industry. Sandesh, wanted to understand, how does LLMs help Perfios in enhancing fraud reduction and prevention?
Sure. So, I mean, instead of speaking of LLM, maybe we can speak more generic about the AI and ML kind of technology. So, Perfios, like I said, primarily works in the financial sector, the BFSI sector, banking and financial institutions, as well as insurance. And there are quite a lot of aspects where ML and AI could definitely play a major role. One, definitely in the whole assessment analytics of the credit assessment, creditworthiness of the customer that they want to lend to. Second, fraud detection. Fraud becomes a major aspect, especially in the financial institution. And how can we leverage the latest in technology through AI and ML and other models, which kind of tries to mitigate a lot of these risks. So, if I can give you an example, for example, you have the fraud as a space. Now, fraud is a very tricky subject, fraud detection especially. Now, when it comes to fraud detection, speed and accuracy is of utmost importance. Now, AI ML is not, LLM as well, is not really suited for a speed and accuracy kind of a use case. It's still not matured so much. But then there's also a huge amount of data that needs to be processed in order to understand what is a fraud and what is not, to understand the whole, to come up with that predictive models. And that is where I think a tricky use of both AIML with heuristic kind of an approach is what people like Perfios, we have been leveraging a lot, because we process close to about 500 million transactions, which is a lot of data, and which you could use for understanding what the propensity of a customer to be. I mean, basically, is the customer real or is he a fraudulent? So, if I go to an example of, say, in insurance, for example, claim adjudication becomes an aspect where a lot of frauds happen. So you have customers who are submitting their claim documents with by colluding with, say, a pharmacist, and the pharmacist gives him a fake bill of, say, 10,000, 20,000 bills. Or this guy could also submit a fake MRI scan or some kind of a diagnostic report and submit it for the purpose of getting that money from the insurer. Now, when this kind of a document is submitted, we process it in real time, and we are here to give a real time decision, real time analytics and decision to our customers, the insurers there. So that's where a lot of approach where, for example, you need to look at what the treatment is, looking by digitizing the whole documents that's been submitted. What are the approach for the treatment, what are the diagnosis reports, what are the procedures that were done, and what procedure is right for what kind of treatment, what kind of medicines are used in what kind of treatments, which region the cost is low, which region the cost is high. So there's a lot of data that needs to come into picture, and this is where I think the ML models kind of bring in a lot of in terms of impact, because it enables us to cross analyze a lot of different data aspects, and also come up with a model, a result which basically says whether this application is true or not. Similarly, even in the credit space, when an application is made by a borrower saying that I want whatever 50 lakhs of loan, first of all, impersonification. So it's a bit of a mouthful. So impersonification is a very important aspect. You might have seen people using Sunny Leone's Aadhaar card or ID card for application and things. These are things that are happening in the industry, and how do you prevent such use cases? Again, people use AI for fraud. There are, for example, use cases where people are coming onto the camera, wherein the image is morphed in real time using the new age LLM models. How do you identify whether this is a real person who's actually showing his liveliness or not? So that's where we have our solutions to detect, identify frauds during the onboarding stage itself, and then during the whole credit underwriting time, whether the documents that's been submitted, is that tampered with, have they manipulated the numbers, are they faking certain information. So a lot of information here, again basis the historic data that Perfios has been processing, as well as some of the latest in technology has been combined to bring in real value to our customers.
Got it. Wanted to kind of understand. So, is it off the shelf kind of products that kind of, fit into your entire customer's business in BFSI? Or, do you have to customize for every customer, do you have to customize the software to fit their needs?
Yeah.
And how does that, how do you tweak the AI for every use case, or the AI is generic?
Yeah, so we are a API based company, so which means that all of our products are primarily API request response. Now, there is, in terms of customization, yes, there's every banker in the country, every lender, every insurance company is unique because they have their own secret sauce, and they want to have certain insight about their customers that they want from us when we provide the data. So, in that way, customization is definitely required, but not in terms of the whole AI model, because that's more of a base platform on which the customizations are built. So, customization is, yes, there for every client, but it's more of the configuration customization rather than the model customization that's required.
Got it. Got it. So I kind of want to, go on to, challenges in AI adoption, Ashish. So I wanted to understand what are the primary cost factors involved in developing and implementing AI solutions?
Sure, sure. I think, yeah, I mean, if you, the cost factors of building AI solutions, I would think are, sort of no different from, any other solution development. I think broadly, I would categorize this into three costs, right? One is the opportunity cost, which is the market value that you're sort of expecting to generate. Um, the other is the development cost, and the third is the operational cost of running that solution. Now, I think let's break each of these down, right? So I think operational, I mean the opportunity cost. Uh, I think that's of course use case driven, and that's where a lot of market analysis, market reports, and often it's not very straightforward or trivial to arrive at a good opportunity cost number. But I think it's still important to sort of identify what is the opportunity or the market value of this solution that you're building. um, I think development cost is, especially for AI-based solutions, is as we all know, a little bit sort of higher as compared to typical, other solution development. And that's a, composition of the human cost, the, the hardware cost, and, data, especially. So these three, I would think, are the main contributors, when it comes to development of AI-based solutions. The talent is, there's a scarcity, in terms there's a demand supply sort of a difference that exists, especially in case of when it comes to AI talent. So the cost of the AI talent is still sort of relatively higher. The second is the hardware, right? I mean, a lot of these, especially large scale machine learning and large language models require significant amount of investment in terms of hardware. GPUs, for example, which comes at a premium. Um, and third is the data. I mean, there are when it comes to curation of data to build these machine learning models, and especially these deep learning based models, large language models, are extremely data hungry. So you need to have large amounts of data to sort of sufficiently train these models for for accuracy. um, so there's a fair bit of cost involved in terms of curating this data in house, or in a lot of cases you might have to source this data from other vendors. So there's a cost involved. Not, I mean, one is in curating this data. The other is also in ensuring the privacy aspects as well. Um, and the time required, the effort involved in developing the AI solutions is also some of consideration. Typically, it involves a phase of research, to identify the right amount of data, the right set of models that you need to build for the use case that you are trying to solve for. So there's a research cost, and then sort of development cost itself. And thirdly, the operational cost of sort of implementing the solution and making it available. I think that again sort of is a function of the hardware, where whether you're sort of serving it on the cloud, or sort of hosting it in house. And yeah, and another aspect is the monitoring of these solutions and the models that you're running, ensuring that these models are performant, and are driving the right amount of accuracy, etc. So there's a cost involved from that perspective as well. So these, I think, I would consider as sort of the overall different cost factors, um, which I think people, anybody who is wanting to adopt AI-based solutions needs to consider, and sort of factor in while adopting AI solutions.
Got it. So Ashish, a follow up to that, if I were to, kind of delve a little deeper into that, so how much percentage of it would be upfront initial, hardware costs? How much of that would be your, research knowledge, or, your repository of knowledge is cost? And then how much of them would be talent cost? And how much of them is operational cost to run the model every time?
Um, yeah, I think. See, I would again. It's I think it's very use case specific. Um, I would say that if you are I mean, there are certain use cases that that can be that will involve sort of lower initial investment, especially with things getting commoditized more and more. There are a lot of models and solutions that that are readily available. Um, so especially let's say you're building a chatbot. There might be existing solutions that you can leverage, and there your initial cost uh, would be lower. But if you're building sort of specific building for specific use cases, there you might want to sort of invest in building those solutions in house. That's where I think there'll be additional cost involved in terms of having the right talent to build those build for those solutions. Um, so I mean, it would be hard to quantify, the exact sort of distribution of this cost. But I think for these large scale models, if you want to, where you need GPUs, etc. I think the cost would be relatively higher, yeah, for hardware. um, and the talent, the way to look at it would be, do you need core ML research talent versus if you're looking at applied sort of AI to build the solution. So wherever you need sort of specialized research, of course the cost of talent would be higher as compared to maybe applied AI. um, so that's how I think. And operational cost, I think that would be sort of a function of whether you're, sort of hosting it in house versus sort of doing it on the cloud, and based on that, the cost would tend to vary.
Got it. Didn't give me a direct answer though.
Can,
So
can I ask a question to Ashish?
Yeah.
So, say for example, I'm using a Llama or a GPT. Again, free versus cost, the paid version versus, say, the Krutim model. What is the price difference, like in terms of high level ratios? Is it going to be
that's why I did
cheaper?
not go into that territory. I asked him directly.
Is it going to be cheaper?
I mean, well, that's the idea, right? I mean, we want to sort of build stuff out of India, with the hope that we can bring the cost down, right? Such that it is it is comfortable for the Indian audience.
Right.
I mean, right now the challenge is that because there are no such similar solutions available. We I mean, most of the folks are sort of required to use the available solutions that have come from OpenAI and other providers. And they come at a premium, right? The price point is not comfortable for Indian setting. Plus, there are other nuances, like it's not built with Indian culture, or Indian sort of ethos in mind. So those sort of personalizations or localizations, basically, is what uh, we can sort of bake in into these
Krutim models.
solutions, right? When it is built India first.
As a user of AI solutions, like in our company we use both ChatGPT as well as Gemini. Haven't had the chance to use Krutum yet. So what we have also realized is, and in general, like coming from my Google experience as well, one of the key factor into the pricing right now of AI usage is the unavailability, or maybe like it's still in the development yet, the unavailability of specific models. Right now,
Right.
everybody is working out of multi-model, right? To search like who is the prime minister of Italy, if I ask Gemini, it's gonna run the entire 500 million variables and give me an answer. But do you need that much? Probably not,
No.
right? So they are all trying to create specific models for specific use cases and niche. That will also be a huge factor in pulling the cost down.
Hmm.
Right now, if you are using a very generic model, the accuracy becomes a lot more important compared to the marginal price difference. Llama, as you said, it's really good in terms of, I'm just talking about one of the very specific use cases, which is translation, right? Llama is pretty good in for a particular set of translation cohorts, but it's free. Great. Can I use it? Yes, I will use it, but I'll use partially Llama, I'll use partially Gemini. And that's how the businesses are trying to reduce their overall operating cost, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, there's also this, how much of additional effort you need to do on top of these models,
Yeah.
before they are before you can
Production ready.
use that for your business use cases.
Yeah.
So I mean, like Ravi was pointing out, the uh, for especially for B2B scenarios, you need specialized solutions to solve for that underlying use case. It could be translation, it could be fraud, for example. And these models like Llama, for example, you might require a lot more customizations on top of it
Correct.
before they can solve for your use cases.
Yeah.
In other cases like ChatGPT, OpenAI might sort of readily give you specialized solutions that built on their foundational models.
Correct.
But then you just have an API that you can just call, and it does the job for you.
Yeah.
Most AI businesses that I see these days are just, API interfaces and a rule set on top of ChatGPT, to be very honest. So most AI businesses are that. And then also, from just a follow up question to that, that using it as a retail user is a different case, using it as a business is a different case, right?
Yeah.
So when you're using it as a business, that's where I believe OpenAI has taken the lead, because it can kind of embed it into its Azure services, whereas GCP is still struggling there. And is it also one of the reasons why you guys have your own LLMs and your own cloud as a part of your career your roadmap?
Yeah, I think some of those business strategies, like I said, they are primarily driven from the point of view of sort of bringing the overall cost for the end customers down, right? And making it, I think two motivations, right? One is that most of these models are built English first. I mean, they perform very well, as long as your queries are in English. um, and there is most of the data that's gone into these models is is sort of global data, which is openly sort of openly available. So one motivation is to sort of make these models more India specific, um, by by including a lot of data that is um, that sort of has Indian culture, Indian ethos, representative of sort of these aspects. The other motivation, like I said, is the cost aspect, right? How to sort of bring down that cost, such that it's at a sweet spot for Indian customers. And yeah, so that can happen, if you have like a control on the overall end-to-end sort of development setting, right? So
Got it, Ashish. So Ravi, I wanted to understand. You are implementing different AI within your products for your customers. How do you justify the high initial costs of AI implementation to your stakeholders?
Well, thanks for the question, Gautam. I think I'll change the question a bit, or not change the question, but maybe the narrative. Rather than the cost, I think it's an investment, I would say. So, yes, it's a high investment activity to begin with. Uh, Overall, I think to build any kind of support within the organization, right, to any kind of AI implementation, you have to curate the narrative, uh, and focus on the long-term value creation. So, who are the beneficiaries? Like, for any kind of AI implementation that you do in your organization, it's either people, it's either the product or the process, or all three, or any combination of these three. Now, in terms of the value creation, if you look at internally, you are creating value for your processes, your increasing your efficiency, you are able to create a niche for your product. uh, Externally, you are serving for your customers, you are better able to understand the customers, you are better able to serve the customers in a very bespoke manner, right? Like, I could be different compared to you in terms of my needs. AI is able to understand that and be able to deliver that. So, keeping these principle in mind, we curate different narrative to onboard different stakeholders within the organization. As like, as the cost piece, right? Like, you have different type of cost involved, you have different type of stakeholders involved as well. Internally, you have product stakeholders, right? How do you convince a product people to kind of make such changes, right? You talk about efficiency gains, you talk about again, long term value creation, focus on the long term piece. You talk about efficiency gains, you talk about what product niche you can deliver with this. You talk about like, what kind of more and more customers you can attract with this. To your CEO, to your top brass, you talk about, okay, what is the competitive advantage you can get with this? As you talk about the opportunity cost for not implementing it, right? Sometimes changing the narrative to, from hey, this is the gain that you have versus this is much the loss that you can have if you don't do this, might work as well. Like, fear of missing out, FOMO, right? So that also works well. And the third is definitely in terms of, how do you mitigate the short term, the optics, like how do you kind of modulate that, the high investment, maybe go towards a different route, like build, buy, or rent, right? As you said, moving on to your own data warehouse or do a cloud-based solution, uh, have a mixed model rather than developing your entire model all together in-house. You have a hybrid, right? You pick up some portion of Llama, you pick up some portion of Gemini, you pick up some portion from your in-house data as well. So keeping all these things together, you build out different narratives. You kind of convince those folks as per what their separate metrics look like. You create an ROI roadmap, find out the real milestone, short term to a 1 year to a 2 year plan. And that's how you kind of engage with those people. That's how you curate those narrative and bring those stakeholder on board.
Got it. So interesting piece where you use a bit of Gemini, use a bit of OpenAI, and how do you kind of how does each other's cloud support other services?
What do you mean by other
Like
services?
GCP, you have Gemini running on GCP, or OpenAI running on Azure, or you have one cloud that kind of integrates with both of them.
So let's take an example. Your product, right? Your product can have multiple different features. Uh, let's talk about Amazon. I'm just because Amazon is one of the most common product that people use, right? Amazon has a recommendation engine, right? Talks about recommendation of electronics product. It can happen that Gemini is best at that compared to, let's say, a customer support, automated customer support voice chat, or a chatbot. The translation is really good at Llama, right? So your product features are powered by different languages and different type of AI solutions that are available, and that's how you kind of integrate them together.
Okay.
Yeah,
The cloud choice is kind of independent
the cloud choice is independent. Yes.
of all of these things.
Yeah.
Got it. So I kind of want to delve into the talent piece, which is the most important thing. Although there is a lot of talk about AI, right? At the end of the day, it's people doing the work, and more so than not, I believe the talent piece is the one that is going to be differentiating between the companies when technology is common to everybody, right? Whatever technology, except the in-house technology that you build, everything is common to everybody else. And also, in a larger mission to make India more employable and reduce the 0 to 3 year skill gap to less than 6 months to 1 year kind of a gestation period, so that companies can have more ready to use or ready to employ kind of talent than spending 3 years of money in the talent to make them employable or productive. So wanted to understand that. I wanted to understand how do we integrate experienced talent into AI projects, and how do we integrate also do have cross industry experience in AI and leveraging AI. So I wanted to first ask you, Ashish. So Ashish, how do you identify and recruit experienced professionals from different industries for AI projects?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important aspect. Like you pointed out, that talent is ultimately going to be the differentiating factor. I think, and especially the cross industry stuff, cross industry talent is, I think, all the more relevant in the context of building AI based solutions, um, because there is a currently there is a gap in terms of the supply of AI talent, and therefore that brings the cost of hiring this talent high, right? I think the cross industry talent is has the opportunity of maybe sort of mitigating that to some extent. And I'll give you some examples, right? So for example, if you're building AI solutions, let's say in the medical domain, right? Now it's going to be very hard to sort of find talent that exactly meets that requirement, right? Folks who have both AI skills as well as medical skills. But then I think that that's where you need to sort of go a step below to understand what are those sort of key skills that are required to build AI solutions in the medical space. And then you might realize that you need experts in, let's say, the vision domain. People who have maybe you're trying to scan MRI reports. So then you start, once you identify, go one level below and identify these skills. Then you sort of go about looking for folks who might have that particular skills. Um, so I think and similar synergies and sort of overlaps exist in different across different industries that you can leverage in hiring hiring the talent. Uh, I think several examples. I think in my experience where we've sort of tried to seek out these overlaps, and then then you sort of go about looking for talent either from outside, or I think in my experience, in a lot of cases, you can even find talent in house. I mean, I think especially since we are talking about sort of early career employees, and they're quite motivated by sort of learning experiences, right? So if you can create these learning experiences for early career employees, I think it works out in the interest of both the employees as well as these companies. Um, so we have had a lot of cases where we have had engineers transition into data science, or these roles. We have had in-house mentorship engagements where we have paired engineers with mentors, and then sort of upskilled them into data science or AI roles. So I would say, yeah, identify these specific skills, go below the use case, and then sort of go about looking either in house or outside.
Got it. So now let's say you've helped graduate a fresh graduate into you upskill him into an AI data scientist or something. How do you build strong relationships with academic institutions as the best chance of getting fresh talent into your company? So I wanted to ask you a little more on that, Sandesh. So can you share a successful partnership between companies and academic institutions that have led to strong talent pipelines?
Sure. So I'll give you two examples in our own institution. So one is I mean, we have a standard set of colleges from where we recruit freshers from. So as part of that whole program, there is a 5 to 6 months kind of a internship opportunity for the students as well. Now, as part of this internship program, they actually come to the office, physically sit with the colleagues here, and of course, initially learn and then contribute to those programs as well. And this is a huge learning curve for them because the whole environment is new, the work culture is now starting to kick in for them from moving from a college kind of a lifestyle, and then also understanding how certain programming, how certain aspects of corporate life works. So the 6 months duration is a huge learning curve for these students, and this is where we try kind of identify where the skills of each of these individual lies and what are they good at and what are they not so good at, and then accordingly allocate each of these guys into a particular team, which is where they get into after the internship program is done. So which means they get an offer to join us as well. And the good thing is we've seen a great success rate in terms of drop-offs is hardly one or two. In If you see a size of about 50 to 60 people, only one or two people actually drop offs. And this also gives a good word of mouth because they then tell their juniors saying that, see, we've got a great experience with Perfios. And then next year when we go, people actually look up for Perfios coming into the campus and recruiting. So this has kind of set a good track for us to get decent talent, pretty good talent from these colleges. This is one. Second one, in terms of partnership, so we worked with this not-for-profit organization called 180DC. Not sure if you've heard of them. It's an international organization. It's a consulting firm. Okay, again, it's not really engineering, but they work with a lot of engineering grads as well. Now, what 180DC does is basically they have a lot of people from consulting background who train students in their second year of engineering to get into this consulting mode. How do you look at a problem? How do you do problem solving? All those soft skills are actually taught as part of this program, and then they actually get placed with organizations that are looking for consulting experts. So, for example, we had a couple of different programs that we ran with 180DC, and so they allocate like literally for a very very minimal kind of a price. They do an entire project. Say, for example, research on Perfios expansion into US, just as an example, or what is the opportunity for us to enter into a new segment, identifying the segment, doing the research, preparing the entire deck with all the outcomes and the research finding. They do a pretty good job. And because one, they're studying and they're very keen to get into consulting, and they're being trained by the good people in the industry. They're hungry. They work really well. They show their talent, and then that gives us an opportunity to give them an offer once they're done their college as well. So these two, I think, are right now two good models that we are kind of seeing to recruit talented kids from universities.
Got it. Got it.
In fact, I mean, if I may add,
Sure, sure.
I think a couple of other things that we have done, right, is hackathons and conferences. I think there are a lot of success stories there as well, where we've sort of rolled out these hackathons, hosted conferences, and a lot of students from these institutions, I mean, in my sort of field of work, right? We've hosted conferences where we've called for research paper submissions, and things like that. And we've gotten a lot of good submissions from these colleges. It's a branding exercise for the company, and for students, it's an opportunity to sort of showcase their talent and work that they have done. And we've attracted a lot of good talent through these sort of avenues as well.
Got it. Got it. So employer branding is a very contentious space because that is something that the marketing team comes and tells you if we put a booth in a conference, that's employer branding because the conference is being held in India, whereas bulk of the people who come to the conference are people who are coming there to sell, not your target segment. So and then you end up spending and believing that that is, but this way, I think both these cases, right? One, when you have relationships with the institutions, the word of mouth gets out very fast within the student community. Second, when you have hackathons, probably they do not know that you guys hire, or probably do not even know that that kind of a company exists,
Yeah.
is kind of brought to limelight, where a lot of students come in, and then slowly that. So I think these two are very interesting. I think employer branding is much to do more with academic collaboration and academic contests
Yeah.
than putting up a stall.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
true.
So that's something. So I want to come to you, Ravi. I want to ask you, how should a company leverage its relationship with academic institutions to stay ahead in technology and AI?
Well, I think as Sandesh and Ashish mentioned about hackathon conferences, definitely it's where you are calling volunteers, you are kind of going and pitching yourself. In terms of being present and leveraging that relationship with the institution, you have to go over there. Uh, yes, definitely hackathons and conferences could be a great way. The third one could be definitely in terms of being present as part of their regular festivals, right? One is a tech fest. That's pretty it's a great opening for you to be over there, present yourself, uh, you know, create a contest, right? All those biz plan competitions, either it is in the undergrads or the postgrad colleges. People are hungry for it, right? Like they have all the academic knowledge, but what they lack is the real life problems, right? Like I, as a student, I could be great at my mathematics and all the optimization solution problems that I'm solving right now. But what is a real life problem that I should solve for a company? You can't tell me that unless you are from a organization, unless you are from a company who's facing that challenges, right? So giving those biz plan competitions out, being part of those tech fest and cultural fest, and putting yourself over there, that gets you a foot in the door. People will recognize you uh, as an organization who is actually dealing with these problems. And if they come up with their business plans and kind of you recognize them, you convert them into pre-placement interviews and internship and then PPOs and all those. I think that could be a good flywheel for you to get those new talents every year, along with getting your real business problems sorted one by one. That could be another way for your foot in the door.
Got it. So, just wanted to add on to this, right? Experienced talent is always, overpriced talent. And the people who actually are able to capitalize on the underpriced talent, that is, talent that is, you get it at a, preferably lesser price than the market value, right? That is where you make most of the killing.
Yeah.
Because overpriced talent is the same. You
Yeah.
are, you want to hire somebody from company A to company B or C, the cost of both B or C would be the same. So there is not much of a difference. It's about how innovative you can get on the underpriced talent to make them more productive and more give you more ROI. That is what I believe will do it. And given I wanted to add a segment here, like say what I come from the services industry. Okay, but then what I see nowadays is that services industries are fastly they're what do you say, their significance is kind of devaluating every day. So there is no special significance added to a services company that just does services, because body shopping is no more lucrative. And I see a lot of SaaS companies and technology companies give services as an added offering to the whole product mix. So, how do you see, a services company doing, like, say, an SFDC development company doing your customization versus Salesforce themselves doing a customization for you. Similarly, how, let's start with you, Sandesh. Let's say, Perfios needs some customization. Somebody, takes it from you, and then they put their internal team or a services company on that, versus you will probably have your own customization teams, right?
Yeah.
How different or difficult it is?
Uh, I think the former is what we prefer always, because we don't want to get into the services business, frankly, because I mean there's a lot of risk and cost and a lot of things that is associated with it. Although the temporary cost for now may be low, but at long term, because and how long can we sustain people who we have onboarded for providing a particular service? That particular initiative probably gets over, and then what do we do with it extra resources? That kind of is a challenge, and hence we prefer as a construct in the company is to partner with a services kind of a setup where we have people from those companies come and do the implementation where required at the customer's end. So we want to primarily, I mean, as a ethos of the company is to primarily remain a SaaS company with revenues associated with only SaaS rather than have it diluted with services kind of a revenue.
Okay, so added on. So it's primarily because your talent costs are higher,
Yes.
and if you provide services, it may not make economic sense. One
And career progression as well.
so they the team people in the services team might feel that they are not being grown at the same pace.
Compared to the
Product guys,
folks.
one. Second, when you say you partner with services companies, right, without naming them, what kind of attributes do you look for, and what is the size that is ideal for you?
I mean, it's generally we look for boutique firms with the right skill set, not the big ones, because there the kind of skill sets usually gets diluted. Boutique ones where we require skills in a particular uh, technology in a particular area or a particular domain knowledge. I think that is where we kind of primarily partner with. So yeah, smaller boutique firms.
So,
And I
Ravi,
think,
posing the
yeah.
same question to you, what is your thought on that part?
No, I think depends on like what type of at what stage of product or organization evolution stage you are in. For example, as you said, boutique firms are definitely suited for a specific short-term need, right? Where you don't have off-the-shelf market product available to serve your need, and that's why you're going for a
Correct.
services company where you have very specific customization need and probably a short one, probably a short tenured one, and that's where the boutique firms come to picture. But if you're looking for a, let's say, a product augmentation, right, where you do not have the right skills within your organization, where it is not just a add-on but more like a long-term sustainable feature to your product, you would go towards a slightly longer term engagement, and that's when your stakes are a little high, and that's where your decision dilemma will come into picture, that should you go with a boutique firm who may or may not have enough testimonials for that particular product or something to deliver, or should you go with the brand name where, yes, there are challenges to deal with those big terms, big names, but you know that it will be delivered in a particular span of time. So I think again it depends on your requirement. It depends on the risk that is involved with with that particular add-on service that you are looking for. So whether it is short term or long term, boutique firm or established one, those kind of trade-offs will come into picture.
So, Ashish, I want to, pick up on that with you. So, what do you think about, the product companies offering services themselves versus having boutique players help you in that space for that part alone? What is your thought on that?
I think uh, I would sort of agree with the perspective here, right? I think the product companies want to focus on their sort of niche, right, and their core value proposition, and sort of focus on product development. And uh, yeah, I think when it comes to services, just sort of partner with yeah, other collaborate with others providing services.
So, this is primarily because of the cost of the talent or the talent feeling left out, or a combination of all of these things?
Combination of this, yeah, and I also sort of resonate, right? I think the career progression is, I mean, you need to, you want to show that path to your employees, and I think it just yeah, sort of having this mixed up, I think will doesn't sort of resonate well with the employees as well.
And one of the things which I also noticed, especially in my firm right now, is like we engage with a services firm, but at the same time, in parallel, we are trying to build the same capabilities in house as well. For in the short term, we do not have that capability. So to get the work running, we need a services firm to be partnering with us. But we know that we require that capabilities in house because again, with services firm, you have a lot of other contingencies associated with it, right? Like you don't have a full control over it. I mean,
Yeah.
like again, you can't grow that seamlessly. You can't have a lot more innovations without a lot of cost ramifications. So you build that capability alongside, and that's the kind of hybrid model a lot of these product developments or feature developments are working on, running on.
Got it. So now I want to, kind of throw the floor open. Let's call it AI talent wars. Okay. So in this, place where AI talent is kind of sought after. Okay, data science talent is sought after. Everybody wants that talent, but then it's not easy to come by, right? So what are the strategies that companies are currently using to attract the top talent, and what do you think are what is the extent do you think companies can go and in terms of attraction strategies, like say somebody working announcing a 3-day work week, or somebody announcing like say 6-hour work days, or somebody saying you can work completely remote, or somebody saying you can come only once or twice to office in a week. So what I wanted to understand, what are the strategies that are very prevalent, what are the strategies that are popular, and what could emerge. Off to you, Ashish.
Look, I think I would I would say that there are as an employee, like there are three things that are important, right? One is the learning opportunities that exist. Secondly, accountability and trust, and third is appreciation. I think these are the three things that typically as an employee I would look for. Um, and the quantum of these things might sort of vary based on whether you are in your early career versus mid or later. Um, so I think as a as a company wanting to sort of attract and retain talent, there are various things that you can do across these things. I mean, when it comes to learning, like I was mentioning earlier, I think some of these strategies around having a good sort of mentorship model in house, or having these uh, you know opportunities to sort of transition, or into other teams. um, I think will go a long way, and we've seen it in our in my experience. People want to sort of get a sense that they're learning, they're growing, and these sort of opportunities help them to sort of do that. Uh, the second bit is accountability and trust. I think especially I mean, people want to sort of feel that ownership, and want to sort of feel trusted, and especially so in this in this next generation, right? I mean, they don't like this constant sort of management, etc., right? And they I think there the other aspect is the information flow. I think it's very important that the information is doesn't stay only with the senior leadership, or the middle management, but it sort of trickles down. There are sort of avenues where it can trickle down uh, to all the employees, right? I think having that trust in your employees is important. And that's where these all these other things, right? I mean, work from home, or remote working. I think all these are basically manifestations of an employer showing trust in their employees. Uh, and yeah, third bit is the appreciation, and that bit, right? I think it's important that there are There are enough number of rewards and recognition sort of avenues given to your employees to to show that you care. I mean, you're I think all these three things together sort of will go a long way. And I think in some sense they are sort of tied to the culture, right? Or they define the culture of your company. And I think that's more important, I would say, than than the money aspect of it. I mean, of course, that's important, but very often, you would see people leaving, not because they're not happy with the money aspect. Maybe, yeah, of course, that plays a role, but then because they're not happy with somewhere with the with these things, right? With the culture, with the learning opportunities that they're getting, or feeling of not getting appreciated enough, etc. Right? So yeah.
Especially around Gen Zs, right?
Yes.
Whatever
Yes.
you've mentioned kind of becomes the hygiene part. They expect this to be already present. This is not so. When we do this, they are like, okay.
Yeah.
So that is the same. What do you think are the wacky ideas, or really creative, or it's kind of absurd ideas that are existent in the market today or being adopted, especially around this?
Yeah. So I think there are these. I mean, it's interesting. I think when see pre-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, I mean, there were very few companies sort of giving this remote working opportunities and all that. And when sort of COVID hit, everybody went into this remote working mode, and at least my feeling is that it worked out well, right? I think people realized that work can happen remotely. People can be productive. And I was hoping that that sort of stays, right? And I would have hoped that there is more amount of sort of remote working happening. Unfortunately, I don't see it picking up to the extent that I was hoping it to pick up. I think, but I think that's sort of one, definitely one way where that can, that will sort of encourage more and more, people to sort of get onboarded. There are a few companies that have started sort of offering full remote work. In fact, there are and beyond geographic restrictions as well, right? I think there are companies that are sort of, let's say, based out of US, offering full remote. Have employees working across the world. I think those, that for me is definitely sort of one thing that we should seriously think about. Yeah.
Just to add, especially on the Gen Z aspect, one of the things that a lot of companies, especially the tech firms I'm talking about, what they're doing is, let's say, they have a mandate, right? Like a significant portion of your work time, let's say 20%, 30%, should go into the activity which you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
They call it like 20% project, 30%
Yeah.
project, right? Like as an individual, you actively pick something out of your mandatory work regime to upskill yourself to either to kind of grow horizontally within the organization itself in terms of skill sets, in terms of different product areas, different business side, so that also entice the talent to kind of hey, beyond my regular work life, I have additional opportunities to learn, which will not which will which will not be counted negatively if I want to do.
Yeah.
So that's another new thing, another really enticing thing for the Gen Z folks nowadays.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And to echo on that point, right? I think, um, I mean, these deep tech companies, while there are business imperatives that sort of require you to work on building these products, etc. Sometimes that uh, sort of requires you to work get into an implementation mode, whether where you're not able to sort of spend enough time on, let's say, core research, which a lot of these companies have uh, post grad and PhDs getting hired, and when they have to get into an implementation mode rather than sort of focusing on research, that tends to create a bit of dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
And to Ravi's point, I think what I've seen is that creating those opportunities for research and somewhere sort of trying to strike a balance between research and these business imperatives, I think goes a long way in sort of keeping your employees happy and retaining them. And tying it back to your let's say your KRAs or appraisals, I think that's equally important.
Yeah.
Because it you don't want to sort of you don't want it to seem like this is something that I'm is not getting recognized or appreciated, right? So that's where that appreciation or recognition also needs to tie in.
Also,
So yeah.
sorry. Just to add to that 30% project, I'll just give you an example of what we do in our company. So we've got this entrepreneurship program, not an entrepreneurship, an entrepreneurship, which basically is remove the risks of like investment, getting the team, and all that. But what we basically have done is collected ideas from anyone and everyone in the company, and out of them filter out the one which has great potential, about 5 to 10 odd ideas which have got great potential. Go for the next step of getting them to elaborate and what these products are, how can this be built, what is the market sizing of this, what is the opportunity cost of all that. And then the selected 3 or 4 are given an opportunity to work on that idea. It's not the company's idea, it's their idea. So they work on that at company's cost, and we help them in terms of everything. And then once gets productionized, once it starts bringing revenue, a significant portion of that revenue goes to this person who actually ideated it and grew that whole idea from gestation, from the beginnings. So that's something that is now coming up quite well, and huge interest. We've got like 400 odd ideas coming in from people in the company, and now we're working on 3 huge ideas, and looking at it, it seems to be a $1 billion idea. So it's like
great.
worked really well.
Yeah, interesting perspective. So, what is the experience level at which the person can become a product
Anything,
owner?
right from a fresher. So the idea is an idea, right? It can come from anyone. It could be from a 50-year-old guy or a 22 23-year-old person who's just joined from college into the company. But then he once the idea is matured, a team has to be formed, which is a sensible team. You can't have all college guys building this. So that choice is left to the team, as well as to the company also saying that, look, he may add extra value, bring him in as well. And that's how it kind of forms.
You told the person ideates kind of drives the product home,
Correct,
right?
correct.
So
He's,
let's
he
say
or
a
she is
fresher
still
ideates a great idea, but then he does not have the skill set to drive the product. Now let's say you get in a product owner with 10-15 years experience to drive it. Who gets the money? The
both,
idea
both,
guy.
both, both. They're co-founders.
They co-founders.
They're
Okay.
co-founders.
Well, interestingly, Google also had like I'm not sure if you have heard about this Area 120 projects. That's exactly what you mentioned, Sandesh. Like no, and ironically, a couple of Google bets have come out of that Area 120 project, which are kind of being pursued full time. So yes, whoever has ideated, whoever has being part of that execution team, and they're supposed to obviously like create their own business plan, right? How do you run the business if you were to be treated as co-founders? They get their fair share of revenue or proceedings as dictated. So that happens. It has been a very proven model.
Interesting. Now, now there could be a lot more people who want to be entrepreneurs but who don't have very
Yeah.
supportive ecosystem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Could, kind of come in and leverage this opportunity.
True.
De-risking that is really important, and as you're doing you rightly said, entrepreneurship, not entrepreneurship, right? Like
Correct.
de-risking that piece that, hey, what if I fail? That kind of that gives you freedom to go into that first principle approach, right? Like, okay, fine, I don't worry about anything, I just create the idea from
It makes
scratch.
you a nepo kid.
Exactly. Yeah, okay, for sure. For sure. And
a good
one of
term.
the things, like, just want to kind of, add to your question, like what an employer should do nowadays, right? Especially from a Gen Z perspective. All the things that you said, Ashish, in terms of like, accountability, learning opportunities. Um I'm trying to tying it back to a very classic question that any HR interview used to ask. Where do you see yourself in next 5 years, right? Remember those questions. I think previously the company's mindset with that, hey, I'm hiring the guy for the next 5 to 10 years and all that. Nowadays, people, at least the Gen Z or the people who have like 3 to 5 years of experience, what they're looking for is not 5 years. They're looking for 3 to 5 years, anywhere between. And as a company, if you are good enough for me for the next 3 years, I'm gonna join you.
Yeah.
And so you need to be, you know, relevant to me and being excited to to keep me for the next 3 years. If I see that, I'll join you, I'll stick with you. I mean, like, all those recognitions and rewards and accountability definitely plays a lot more role, but the change in the philosophy of those hiring folks need to come as well.
Yeah, and this is all the more, I think, important in the space of AI because, I mean, things are sort of things are changing and evolving so much that there is always a fear of missing out. There is the need to stay relevant, and I mean, if as an employer you can provide that those opportunities to your employees to stay relevant, through learnings, through things like this. It's I mean, otherwise there's a lot of demand, right? I mean, there's a lot of demand, less supply. Very easy to lose
Less
your
supply of right
employees.
talent.
Hmm?
The right talent. Less supply of right
Yes, less
talent,
supply of
definitely.
right talent. Yeah.
Adding to that, right, the question is flipped nowadays. Nowadays, it's not like where do you see yourself in 5 years from the employer to the employee. It's the
Exactly.
employee to the
Reverse.
employer. Where do you
Exactly.
see yourself growing in the next 5 years?
Where do I fit in?
Where do I fit in the whole
Exactly.
equation?
Yeah.
And are you guys doing AI, ML, and all of that stuff so that I can come in and use my expertise, or else very well you can go and I'm talking about the top-notch talent.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Correct.
kind of
AI
questions.
adoption, where are you in the AI adoption journey? It's a very prevalent question nowadays from interviewers, from interviewee
From
to from
candidates.
the
Candidates,
candidates
yeah.
towards all the hiring panel.
So
So,
and also touching upon this permanent remote, right? Both from a fresher angle and from a experienced angle, right? So I'll tell you. So as sexy as it sounds, right? It is not that great permanent remote. Why? Because I've had SaaS companies. There was a company in Mumbai for which we hired a site reliability engineer, which is a very independent, monotonous job. Does not require a lot of communication with the team and all of that. So they were also like, okay, fine, let him operate remote. So they hired a SRE from Bangalore working remotely for a Mumbai company. To build that initial level of trust, even during the interview, they called him there, they met him, they had a wine and dine, and then only offered him. In spite of that, the candidate in 2 months of joining, right? Nobody could kind of trust this guy and give him the actual credentials and all the access so that he could do it. So he had tried different ways of lobbying, emailing, calling, talking to the manager, talking to the CXO and all of that, but none of it worked. And then eventually the guy himself quit, saying, "Boss, मेरे से नहीं होगा. I don't want to be here because I'm not able to do anything. You don't give me anything. You ask me to do this, and I don't know what to do." And SREs are very short in supply if you look at it, because not a lot of companies that operate at that scale to have an SRE full time. So that is what happened. So the trust factor is also lost when you're completely remote, or is never built, to be honest.
it's a function of, or not a function of, let's say, again, it depends on A, what is your role within the organization. B, what does your role entails you to do on your day-to-day activities? And C, definitely what kind of a person you are as well. So again, for a lot of people, full remote hybrid works really great. For a lot of people, it doesn't. For them to work, to function effectively, to get their work done, to get their job done, and complete their responsibilities, they need to be in the office. They need to be surrounded by 5 people from different from different functions to get their work done. So again, it's a function of multiple different aspects, I would say.
Do you think that happens there, Sandesh? What factor of trust is built because you are meeting the person in flesh and bones?
So, I mean, that's human thing, right? When you meet somebody face to face, the kind of trust is much different to you have never met them or you're just talking to them over the phone, just over a video call and things like that. So during COVID, the kind of, because you already knew people, and it's the same people who actually transitioned to this virtual model. It worked for 2 3 years, and it's still working for that old timers. But the new freshers who are joining in and who are working completely remote, that personal touch is missing. So that's that, the softer aspect of things, which kind of creates a friction in the longer term. Plus also the freshers who are coming in, if they're getting used to remote work and things like that, there are a lot of things that they don't learn. There are a lot of things that you learn when you come to office, the whole water cooler kind of a chat or sutta break and all that. Yes, you learn bad things, but there are a lot of good things that you get to know people, you get to know the whole dynamic of the company. Those chit chat don't happen on virtually. If somebody's come in, you don't talk to them like, hey, what's happening, did you do this, did you do this happen? That doesn't happen. So I think, hybrid, I'm a personal believer that permanent moving to office is better, but I think hybrid is a good approach, where maybe 2 days 3 days a week come to office, and rest of the day, because of whatever traffic reasons and things like that, stay at home. It's not about work being done. It's more of that softer aspect of the personal touch, which is, I feel, more important, and it's kind of slowly diminishing because of the permanent work from home kind of a concept.
That's fair.
I kind of allude to that fact. Okay, so I believe that like high permanent remote is like a electric car with range anxiety, and then you have your 100% work from office is like your regular internal
True,
combustion engine. The hybrid cars have the longest mileage for
Yeah,
best bang
agree.
for the buck.
Yeah.
You get best of both worlds. Probably the cost is a little more little higher than what you would like to be in an electric car, but it kind of, because at the end of the day you are able to build relationships. At the same time, you have the convenience of not having to commute 2.5 hours a day,
Correct.
both ways, right? So that is what I believe. And also, from a finer aspect, right, when you know the person, right, he is just not a number on your sheet.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
So if you are a permanent remote employee, your number on the sheet, that person is never bothered to see you. So it's whenever I want to, think about cost, you're the first person I would want to strike out. And especially for freshers who, freshers nowadays, they want permanent remote roles. I'm like, what do you think is permanent remote roles? I want to stay out of home and work. I don't want to come and spend money here. I'll stay at my home and work. So eventually, those freshers will never get opportunities or will get culled off. When they get culled off, they will never be able to, get into a company, because they nobody would consider that experience as real working experience.
Exactly.
So those are things that I see. And how do you guys approach? You guys work 5 days out of office, or is it hybrid?
No, we work 5 days out of office. But look, I think I mean I also think that it's the overall maturity of the ecosystem that I think a lot of these things that we are discussing are in the context of what is the current maturity of the overall ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if if we were to look at this sort of scenario where it's complete remote working, I think it would require the whole ecosystem to sort of warm up to that idea and get to a stage where that's not frowned upon, right? Or you're not losing out on certain opportunities just because you're being a complete remote employee. So yeah, definitely we're not there yet. I think there are a lot of practical challenges in sort of getting to that level of maturity. And all these points that we're discussing are very very true and need to be solved for, because before we sort of get to that stage.
How do you think about a 3-day work week? Because this 5-day work week was invented by Henry Ford in 1920s for factory workers. When he came up with this 40-hour work week concept, right? That's when it was invented, when machines were doing bulk of the work and human were also involved actively. Now that we have AI, robo, and all of that, right? So we are not creating enough jobs for people that are coming into the workforce every year, and people become more value driven. It's not just time driven. Except the services companies, they
Yep.
bill by the hour, right? That is why 40 hours per week is essential. Anything, you reduce anything on the 40 hours per week, right? Their top line only gets affected, forget the bottom line. So the top line only gets affected. So that is a thing. But with more services product companies coming up, right, with value driven, if it's a 3-day work week, we can double the employment overnight.
And you question
And
Mr. Murthy for mentioning 70 hours.
no, as in, I'm happy to say, if you're an entrepreneur, right, or if you're a CXO, at CXO level, every employee works almost every waking hour. There is no, the company literally owns you, okay? And you're an entrepreneur, it's like, it's a given. You wanted to do it, you do it. Nobody is appreciating you for working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. Nobody is appreciating it. But when you give somebody, that person has no, part of the success story,
Yeah.
or is not getting even a small portion of the success pie, but just given peanuts for as a salary, and you expect him to work 70 hours a week, that is not right. So you, like, in a product company, if you're if you're the founder, or if you're a part of the founding team, you work 70 hours, you work 90 hours, you work almost all the time, no problem. Okay, then you are walking away with the bulk of the wealth, and you are doing bulk of the work also. Here you want to do bulk of the work, but somebody else gets to walk away with the bulk of the wealth. And then we call it compassionate capitalism. And then we say it's nice. The compassionate capitalism is communism, according to me. And there is also this thing in India, right? The the poorer you look in spite of being rich, that is when you are hailed upon.
Yeah.
It's somehow rude to display wealth, which you worked hard for. But the same person will have an iPhone and will be tweeting it out of his iPhone, will not have a problem. Why not buy a normal phone and then spread the wealth across every, his domestic help? So it's a double standard. Like, here you're looked upon like, let's say, the way you are looked upon is, hey, इसके पास इतना पैसा है, फिर भी he is going in a Maruti Suzuki car.
Modesty.
That is modesty. Okay.
I think that's part of the Indian value system, right? We are taught to be humble, be modest, right from the beginning. That's in our upbringing, right? And that's where I think everything comes. And your point about, like, hey, why this appearance is held at such a high value. That's why.
Look, there are a lot of things we consider as Indian values which are not actually Indian
Oh no, no,
values.
I'm not getting into that, like whether it is right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, maybe I'm trying to rationalize why it is held at a high regard.
I believe it's more out of jealousy than the actual reason of modesty and all of that. Yes, you can be. I'm not saying splurge your wealth or something, but if somebody is splurging his wealth, he has hard worked for it. He's splurging it. It is his own prerogative that he does that. Who are you to question? Just because you cannot do it for your daughter, you will then go and question that you're doing this. That is how I feel. And even the recent Pune incident that happened, right? The people who were throwing stones at it after the guy was taken away were people who could not afford the car and were like angry at the fact that this is done. Whatever he did is absolutely wrong. Okay. But that kind of, hooliganism is not something that is acceptable. Even that is illegal, right?
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, but there is no one person to point finger at, so it's easy to get away with that. So if what he did is illegal, you throwing stones at his car is also illegal. You beating him up is also illegal. So that is something, that is okay. That is okay illegal. This is bad illegal. Like if you fly on a private plane, it's fine. It's looked down upon, saying that you are flaunting your wealth and all of that. But if you fly on economy class, And then everybody is like, look at him, so many crores, he's a billionaire traveling on economy class. So I think that is an PR that they want to build, and that's why they do that. So, and Gen Zs are like, boss, I have money, I'm spending. You have a problem, deal with it, not mine. So that is where it's happening, and that's somewhere where workforce is going towards. And you all are silent.
No, no, we are looking at you, the person holding an iPad.
This
Do
is
not want
true.
to get into
Trying to-
contours.
Yeah.
in this
Remember, like,
as
where
well.
did we start this conversation from?
It's just kind of tapered off of existing conversation.
Yeah,
This is to ensure I remember your questions, Ravi. Or else I ask you a question like this. Look, the entire if the entire thing was unscripted, I will ask you only questions like this. All of you will look at each other and smile and will not give me an answer, and it will be a monologue with three people. So that is why I wanted to, have questions that you're comfortable with, but I wanted to veer a little off to understand what your insights are. But I understand,
Nothing
I'm a
coming out of
recruitment
this.
consultant. I would want you to use my services last, not next month. So that's the whole thing. So okay, let's kind of get into this thing. Want to get into the most interesting part, which is called the decision dilemmas, where we have two options, both of which are really good, but we'll have to choose one. You don't have to give me explanation on why you choose one, and no, both the bit of this, bit of that, and all of that. Just choose one. It's just your personal opinion, not necessarily your company's opinion. Just I'll start with Ashish. Okay,
Mhm.
AI for NLP or computer vision?
Since you're forcing me to pick one, I would say NLP. And otherwise, I would have said, I mean, it's a multimodal word. So
I knew this answer was coming. That's why
That's why he has given a gun to your head.
yeah, I know, yeah.
Choose one.
AI solutions produced in house or partner with AI vendors?
In-house,
Industry specific solutions or broad applications?
broad applications,
AI model accuracy or scalability?
scalability,
AI development or external AI collaborations?
AI development,
Okay. So, Ravi, for you, automated customer support with AI or human augmented AI support?
Okay, yeah, gun to my head.
gun,
Human augmented customer support.
AI capabilities in CRM integration or AI driven analytics?
AI driven analytics.
AI for customer retention strategies or acquisition strategies?
Tough one. Customer retention.
Okay. And then, look, I forgot where I was. Invest in AI training for current staff or hire new AI specialists? Communist angle.
Yes. Well, again, hire new AI specialist. Just speed over.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, AI for immediate business needs or long term strategic goals?
Long term strategy goals always.
Okay. Sandesh, to you, right? AI for credit risk or fraud detection?
Maybe fraud.
Maybe fraud.
No, because yeah, both are relevant, but I think fraud is more.
Gun to your head.
Yeah, gun to your head.
This is the first time I'm hearing. I've been doing this for 11 episodes. It sounds like I have a shotgun behind me. So yeah. So AI for data aggregation or real time analytics?
Data aggregation.
Develop in-house AI solutions or collaborate with fintech AI providers.
Collaborate. Leave it to the experts.
Okay. AI for customer personalization or operational efficiency?
Operational efficiency, very clear.
AI governance or AI innovation?
Innovate first and then govern.
I because if you govern too much, then you kill the
Yeah,
innovation.
kill
right?
the innovation.
Got it. So, getting to the last segment, okay. So, we are doing this as a broader initiative to, kind of bridge the gap between academia and the industry, and then bring that 0 to 3 year gestation period to 6 months to 1 year, and making industry, fresh talent more employable. So, in that regard, wanted a positive contribution from each one of you. so that we can do something to make India more employable and the talent more readily put to use kind of scenario. So I'll start with you, Ashish.
Uh, no, so I think we're looking for like programs that
So
sort of
can you
encourage
repeat the
this.
question? That's what I was
Okay,
Yeah.
asking.
so I'll
Let's start
say.
from
So
beginning.
what we can do is, so as in the idea is that let's say certain companies will have centers of excellence
Hmm.
whereby they teach technology for these kids in the third year and then have them as interns in the fourth year, so that it's easier. Or some people will be like they'll give a semester worth subject, so which their employees will teach to the faculty, and the faculty will carry it out through the semester with a little bit of this thing. So, or else, some people can be like, hey, I have immediate intern requirements. I can absorb so many interns and then, I can do it. Or, let's say I will be able to mentor 5 students in my personal capacity so that, they're more industry ready and I can tell them where to look for jobs and how to get out.
Hmm.
So, something like that, whatever which does not push your boundaries, but in your comfort zone that you can do for the academia to become
Sure.
more coherent with the industry.
Sure. Sure. So I think I'll I can provide two options, right? I think one is more on a personal capacity. I've been doing a lot of teaching. I visiting lectureship and things like that. Um, yeah, I think that's one thing that I'm happy to sort of offer. I've done that in the past. The other is I think from a company standpoint, we do a lot of we offer internships. We have a very active internship program, ranging from summer internship as short as 3 months, to longer internship programs, 6 months or more. So, um, and yeah, I mean as we have been discussing, it's a very good sort of avenue and channel to have these early career folks to sort of come in, get some work experience, work with industry experts, build that sort of confidence, get a taste of applying what you've learned to industry problems, right? And get prepared for what's sort of lying ahead in your work career. And we have a lot of successful sort of cases of conversion as well, right? You come in as interns and sort of based on your performance, etc., you get placement offers as well through that. So I think these are the two avenues that I can.
Thank you. Sandesh?
Uh, I would probably say ditto. Because from a personal point of view, I like teaching. I've been a teacher as well in one point of time in my career, and my career aspiration also is after doing all this, get back to teaching, and happy to be part of this particular whole. If there's an initiative of such, be part of that program. From a company perspective, we are doing the internship program every year, like I was saying in the beginning as well. Uh, I mean, the success ratio has been about 98% of people converting from the internship to full time employment. That's really working well. And yeah, so that's where I think we can partner and we will continue to partner.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Uh,
Ravi?
I think I guess the bulk of all the activities that needs to be done are already covered. Like, and I think just building on that from a mindset perspective, what we call on-the-job training, right? What we need to push that on-the-job training more upstream, right? Either through projects, through small projects, to which leads to 1 month of internship, to 3 months of internship, to 6 months of internship, and then PPOs and offers. Like have that framework or structure built into the DNAs of these organizations, these mid-sized companies, or even the big firms. Like startups may not have the right, or small-sized startups may not have the right, talent, not talent, I would say. They are still in the survival mode, right? So they may not have enough motivation to go into that aspect, but mid-sized firms and big firms, they do have that appetite. So pushing that on the job training upstream with that philosophy, I think all these programs can be curated. All the big product development can be sliced and diced in terms of smaller projects, freelancing activities, and all that, and then push it up. Give it to colleges, give it to third year, fourth year students, and have them see what it looks like to be part of a working culture, get their hands dirty, and then have them be ready for the work when the fourth year is completed.
Thank you. If I summarize it right, more industry projects for
Yes,
students, right?
correct.
I had to simplify it to the sales language that I know. So, it was a very technical answer. I am like, okay, I had to pick out this. So he had actually rescheduled his flight to be here. Thank you very much. And, each one of you, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'd love to, have some more on the fence kind of topics with all of you. I really enjoyed it was like a locker room boys talk. So wanted that to be more of that mainstream. But yeah, thank you very much for honoring us with your presence here today. Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Gautam.
much.
Thanks
Lovely
for having
Thank
us
you.
here.
conversation.
Thanks for the
Thank you, everyone.
opportunity.
Hey, thanks for watching Titans Talk today. I hope you had a really insightful session. I'm Gautam, your global CHRO who helps you buy, build, and rent talent across industries, across levels of experience. If you want to hire freshers or if you want to hire laterals, do get in touch with us with the link below, and my team will get in touch with you to take it from there. Looking forward to meeting you again in another episode.